Now, barefooting involves 4 variables: wind, waves, speed, and body position. Together, they determine whether Kevin glides or sinks like a stone. Ouch!
That doesn't even seem easy on any level.
This is no easy feat when the feet are pushing against the water at 45 miles per hour. Wow!
How was that run, Matt?
That was awesome. That was great.
All right, sounds good.
At 500 frames per second, we reveal Kevin's technique for doing the impossible.
The really difficult part is trying to keep balanced while going from laying down to sitting up to standing up.
I'm just watching your feet bouncing around like that. They're not killing you right now. My feet are killing me watching you.
Oh no, they don't hurt unless you hold on for a long, long time. Then they'll start to burn.
Normally you have a couple square feet of surface area. Now you have much less surface area. You have to put a lot higher pressure and force on your feet to deflect the water downward to keep yourself lifted. And that means a lot faster velocity on the boat and a lot more spray. You're just pushing water a lot faster in general. It's extreme.
Extreme might be considered an understatement.
Look how calm you are.
This hurts the rest of your body.
It almost looks like a trick. How dangerous is this when you fall?
Oh, it can get pretty dangerous. Feels like concrete going that fast.
The thing is to learn new tricks. I mean, you have to find that balance between keeping yourself healthy and getting better at the sport.
The transition between stunts is typically the hardest time to stay up.
So this is a really hard transition from front to back. It seems so disorienting.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You kind of have to feel where you are, especially in the rough water.
Amazing. Kevin, you got one more run in it?
Yeah. Get back out there.
All right.
Now, we can never leave well enough alone, so back to the water for one more demonstration.
Are you ready for some high speed?
Because the water has become choppy, Kevin uses a boom pole off the side of the boat to avoid physical injury. This might make it even easier for Matt to angle in on the action. Look at this. Toe hold. Tumble turns. And a whole lot of spray.
It's so much more fun to watch it when it's 5 feet away than when it's on a tow line.
Yeah.
You see everything, you see every detail. It's really amazing to see, and it is amazing to see how much less spray you put on when you're using your entire back. For surface area, you switch back to a smaller surface area, and suddenly you have to move the water a lot more.
The spray going everywhere.
I'm amazed you don't need more speed when you go on one foot. You know, given the whole surface area, it suddenly cuts in half. Does your other foot compensate? Does it dip lower into the water to catch more water?
Well, you have to lean back a little more. I don't know if you can tell from this, but when I lift one foot up, I'm leaning away so that I obviously don't fall.
Well, that makes sense because you need to deflect the water at a greater angle to keep the same upward momentum.
I mean, that's just cool looking. I mean, water is fun.
Yeah, that was cool.
That is amazing.
Ready, everybody? Let's go. This is a feat of nature. Fortunately, without the agony of defeat. Featured on Time Warp. We think you'll agree it's time to wrap this up, as we have exhausted every possible stupid play on words.
Perfect height.
One thing you've got to know about this show: we never leave well enough alone. Remember James Williams, the samurai sword-wielding martial arts expert, and his katana sword?
You wouldn't have seen that coming until your head was gone.
Samurai believed the katana's real power lies in the hands of the swordsman.
As I cut, I'm actually sending a wave of energy through my body.
The samurai transfer their own kinetic energy through their arms to victims.
Oh, all right.
Don't believe it? Jeff sure does.
Oh, all right.
We never get tired of watching that.
Oh, all right. I've had enough.
But that's not what got us thinking. We watched James cut through a forest of wet tatami mats. Why? They put up as much resistance as a human torso does.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm still thinking that looks like a rolled up window blind.
The mats were cool, but in our humble estimation, not cool enough. Which got us thinking again.
So we should get him with his crazy katana blade and have him destroy some serious things.
Ask and ye shall receive.
You got a kitchen table
I got
full of things.
all kinds of squishy stuff that are not tatami mats.
First victim, an egg.
That's extraordinary. The fact that you cut a little cap off of it and leave the yolk intact, please. Oh, you did, thank you.
The yolk is on us. Sorry about that. Moving on up the food chain, it's time to go fishing. The salmon barely moves at all as the razor-sharp katana cuts diagonally through its backbone.
Looks like a real efficient way to chop somebody in half.
Not a lot of resistance to the blade. As you can see, it just moves right through it.
We mentioned we found the tatami mat boring because although it simulated human flesh, it still looked like, well, a rug, which influenced our next choice of target. Pork, anyone?
This is totally human.
But it could have been worse.
Japanese used to test their swords on prisoners, condemned prisoners. And one particular very large limb guy, nobody wanted to test the sword on him because of the possibility of cracking edge on bone.
Jungbone, that's Japanese for the hardened edge of the sword.
You're really cutting through human feeling tissue now. It even looks like an armpit. That is an armpit.
Thanks for sharing, Jeff. Now we won't be able to get that image out of our mind.
Shoulder blade. So this should be a much more real challenge. This feels to me pretty much how human shoulder blade does.
Actually, pigs don't tend to have much marrow. Their bones tend to be very thick and hard. So
Enough with the human stuff already.
Go for it, James. All right. Look how big that bone is.
James's katana cuts clean through Porky's bone, even on the diagonal. That's all, folks.
I still don't see barely any deceleration when you hit that bone.
I can feel it click through.
Sure.
But it's gone through by the time, it's gone.
Watch again. Now back to the butcher shop for another target.
All right, so bigger pig, more resistance, more bone, more flesh.
Testing the upper limits of sword and swordsman, the warp crew hang an even larger hunk of pork. Will it make a difference?
Okay, I think the difference was the scream. You totally didn't do that before.
The last time was committed. It was going through. Before we're cutting more technically, that was a cut to cut him down, period.
Pork chopped.
Bones are just what evolved to make us structurally stable, and any kind of metal is so much harder than anything in a human body.
Now you warpies know that we often ask guests what they want to see in slow motion. Fortunately, James did not ask for some condemned prisoners. Here at the Time Warp Labs, the beat goes on. And on. And on.
Thank you. Mike Mangini, one of the great drummers in our studio. Thanks for coming out.
Them some quick hands right there.
Yeah, it's pretty much invisible what you're doing. How do you do it?
Passion and a good practice method.
A lot of practice.
A lot of practice.
In this case, practice has made perfect. Mike set a world speed record with an incredible 1,247 beats a minute, over 20 beats a second. But what happens when stick meets drum kit and drum kit meets human body? Time to find out.
We would love to get some of this technique on high speed, figure out how to do it for ourselves.
Absolutely.
First, a little warm-up on the drumometer, a device that calculates beats per second.
So we're set up for just a 10-second run as fast as you can go.
Let's see if Mike can match his record. A deep breath, and he's gone. Now watch the numbers fly.
201, 20.1 beats a second. That's pretty amazing.
Top drummers are nothing if not amazing and consistent. In warp time, Mike's precise moves are clear. The action really is all in the wrist. As the sticks fly up and down, the rest of his body barely moves. But what happens when Mike lets this blur loose across his entire kit?
Mike, do you like heat and lights? And did you bring your suntan lotion?
See.
This is one drum solo nobody will want to walk out of.
Hit it! Nice. Very nice.
Rock drummers work at the limits of human endurance. They burn up to 600 calories an hour and are at risk for sprains, heart strain, and stress injuries. Even collapsed lungs have been reported.
I have to know what parts of my body have to be flexed so that I just don't lose control.
Gotcha. And it seems like a lot of people fall into the trap of injuries because they're depending on these tiny muscles to fix things that the big muscles should be doing.
You nailed it.
The sticks lay loose in his fingers. He uses the larger muscles in his hand, and he lets his fingers stay relaxed.
You want to talk about looseness? Look at your backhand doing the rim shot. Your ring finger just completely shakes out 3 or 4 times every time you're making that hit.
Right.
And if you were tense, you'd get all the tendonitis issues, but you can see how loose your hands have to be through all those motions.
Watch Mike's left hand again. His ring finger is loose, relaxed, while the rest of him is tense and working hard.
Just out of curiosity, how many steps ahead are you of your hands? In your mind, with your eyes?
Once I'm hitting the 2 hi-hat cymbals that are at the top, I'm thinking about hitting the ones that are at the bottom. So when I'm hitting one thing, I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to hit.
Your eyes are 1 or 2 steps ahead.
You can see that?
Yep.
That's a flick hit, watch. That's like hitting a fly.
Next fly that's in my house is getting that treatment.
It's a
right
backward
there.
slap. Biff!
Wicked. Okay, so much for the drummer. Now, what's happening to the drum kit itself?
Oh! An everyday, normal snare hit.
That's not funny. Look at that.
It's an amazing thing, right?
I don't believe what I'm looking at.
The snare skin appears almost liquid as it absorbs the impact of Mike's stick.
And it doesn't stop until my stick touches the drum head again.
So we should look at one of your cymbals. Set that
It's
up.
probably going to look like...
Hit it! That's outrageous. It's unbelievable.
Watch the deflection you put in carry that wave all around the ring, and now it just gets to the back, and then it starts going nuts.
Yeah. And then it comes back to the front. I've been beating the heck out of them for years, and they haven't broken. I can't even believe what I'm looking at. That's unbelievable.
Time Warp is on a roll, made in their shades.
That's how you end it.
For people who break glass as often as Time Warp does, you'd think we'd know what to expect. But sometimes the results are unexpected. Like when we fired a paintball at a light bulb. Now watch closely. Notice something?
After the paintball explodes this, the filament stays lit for like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, like
at least a second.
It needs oxygen to do that. As soon as you break that glass open, a couple molecules of oxygen start getting in there and actually lights on fire, burns away the metal.
How does a light bulb stay lit? Not exactly a question you ask every day, but since we brought it up...
Pretend this is the filament in the bulb, right? It's just some metal.
Steel wool.
Now, when it's not in anything except a vacuum, it heats up and it radiates light.
So if I just had a light bulb with no bulb around it, if I just had the filament glowing,
Wouldn't be
1
much of a
second
bulb.
or 2 seconds is all I'm gonna get.
If that. Yeah, actually, you know, what I'm setting up here is a kind of that on steroids version, where instead of just a very small current, this is a couple milliamps, I've got here, you know, 15,000 volts and a much bigger piece of steel wool.
That is cool.
Watch again. The steel wool meets the electricity, hesitates, and then burns away. Fire, smoke, and vapor. Ah, inspiration. We don't know about art, but we sure know what Jeff likes. He begins with a sheet of watercolor art paper attached to a makeshift easel, a strand of filament wire, and a couple of twists across some terminals.
Am I gonna be safe here?
You're totally safe. Just make sure your ear protection is on, okay?
Add 15,000 volts. In an instant, high-speed cameras capture an exploding wire as hot as the sun.